Hello and welcome to Strangers Stopping Strangers. This is our 7th podcast. So thank you for everyone who is tuning in. A welcome back to anyone who has been visiting this podcast, and a welcome too for anyone who's new. Last week's podcast was amazing. We had 3 times the tune-ins than any other podcast. And so thank you for that. And an extra special thank you to my guest, David Davis, who turned many people on to listening. If you haven't checked out his blog, you should at gratefulseconds.blogspot.com. So I am back from California, settling into Massachusetts. And speaking of Massachusetts, all eyes are on Fenway this weekend. I am so excited. So today we have a fantastic podcast. It's featuring my very first 21st Century Deadhead, David Bourne, and he, as well as a blogger, really cool stuff. Check him out at bournedead.blogspot.com, BOURNE, dead.blogspot.com. And we're mixing it up. We're playing some vintage Grateful Dead with some Dead & Company from last month, and this is my first addition to Further on the podcast. We have a show from 11/11/11, which was Veterans Day. And then, of course, they busted out the 11 and U.S. Blues to make things extra super special. And then lastly, speaking of U.S. Blues, everyone please stay on after the last song because we have a second guest today. The Chicken Chat guy, who is known and loved by many, he checks in and updates us on what's been going on with him for the last 40-somewhat years. So it's a lot of fun. Well, thanks to everyone for tuning in, and enjoy.
Hey, David, thank you so much for joining the Strangers Stopping Strangers blog. I'm excited to have you on.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Absolutely. Well, you are the first person that I am talking to on this blog that is of the 21st century Deadhead. So I'm really excited to mix it up and hear perspectives from lots of different people. I've had people, in their 60s, in their 50s, in their 40s, and in their 30s. So here we are.
Now you got someone in their 20s. You're counting down. You can go a little higher too. But after me, I think it's going to start getting a little too young. Maybe, who knows?
Maybe I'll have my son on. He's 9. He pointed out the difference. We were listening to the music, and he pointed out Franklin's Tower and said that my song was playing because I'm sorry, not Franklin's Tower. Feels Like a Stranger came on when we were driving, and he said, "Mommy, it's your song, Feels Like a Stranger," and it made me really happy. So yeah, maybe my 9-year-old son will be next.
Yeah. I mean, that's the proud parenting thing. Not only do the kids know good music, but they know the exact song.
Yeah, he got it off a little. They got the stranger and he got the band, but he got the song wrong. But I was smiling. It made me super happy. So next summer we'll take him on tour.
Yeah.
So I want to hear all about your blog. Tell me about how you got into the scene and your blog. Let's tell our listeners a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, so I guess, I'll start with how I got into the Dead in general, which actually goes, I guess, maybe I don't have to, but I'm going to backtrack a bit back to 79, because my parents, especially my dad, and then my mom, once he met her, were big Deadheads back in the day. His first show was in 73 at Boston Music Hall. It was actually released as a Dick's Picks 14 since then, so if anyone wants to see what happened there, I would definitely recommend it. And,
was that the April 2nd, 1973? April 2nd?
No, it was November 29 and then December 1 and 2. They did 3 shows, and the Dick's Picks is just the first and third of those shows, and they left out the second one. But it was at the Boston Music Hall. And then, he saw a bunch of the Dead all throughout the 70s, and then it came to 79, and he had met my mom, and I believe they were married at this point. But they went to a show out in Billerica at a hockey rink where, the security was a huge hassle and the sound wasn't that good, and they had covered up the ice with just cardboard that got all soggy and cold. And they decided that, as good as the music is, the whole atmosphere just isn't what they want to deal with. So he kind of got out of it. And, they still, bought the albums and listened to tapes, but never went to shows after that. But,
okay.
And then, I was born in 91, grew up in the suburbs, listening to, the kind of music my parents listened to, the Beatles and bluegrass and whatnot. And in high school, my dad would tell me, the best album there is American Beauty, and the best bass player there is Bill Lesh, and I'd say, yeah, whatever you're saying. But eventually, I listened to Skull and Roses. I kind of went from the Beatles to the Doors to Just an Airplane to Hot Tuna, and then I was ready for the Grateful Dead at that point. I just totally fell in love with Warfrat on Skull and Roses. And my buddy Johnny, I was in at Ithaca College in New York there, and my buddy Johnny had pretty much all of the Dick Stick series and gave them to me for free, and I just went down the rabbit hole after that.
It was on. You were on. You were on the bus at that point. You were on the bus.
Yep, I was mostly on the bus, and then right around that time, Further was doing one of their tours. It was late winter, it was March of 2011, and they were coming through Binghamton, which actually, I think it was your last show, right, where you had the trucking from Binghamton.
I did.
So,
yeah.
And it wasn't, it was the exact same venue, the Bourne County Auditorium, Coliseum, whatever they call it. And I saw Further live there, and was just totally on the bus from then on out. So
awesome.
Yeah, and then spent the rest of college annoying all my friends with my deadheadedness. Had a few other deadheads who helped me annoy them, and eventually I decided, well, I have so many things to say and so many thoughts about the dead, and it's so hard to articulate them without writing them down. So I decided, well, I could write a blog, and maybe other people will listen to what I have to say about it, and that's how I got into the whole thing.
Well, that is awesome. That's so fun. And I have to say, it's Binghamton, and I completely mispronounced the town in my last podcast. So my apologies to the Broome County Arena and the town of Binghamton, New York, because I think I called it Birmingham. So
I think you did. I wasn't going to point it out.
I think I was a little off on a couple things. Well, I want to get into some music. So we picked a few songs, and the first song you selected, it was definitely long before that time. So we picked The Wheel. So tell me a little bit about why we picked this song.
Yeah, this was, when I knew I was going to be coming on here, I kind of had a big list. I was getting more and more out of control, and this was one of the last songs that I wrote down, because I came across this particular version last year. And I'd always really liked The Wheel. Obviously, the album version is incredible, and the Dead played so many different versions of it. But this was the first one that really, broke through to me, that I really thought, aha, that's what this song is supposed to be. And I've listened to it, so many times since then. So that's why I picked this particular version of The Wheel.
Well, what's so fun about doing this podcast, too, is a lot of times, even in last week's podcast and this week's podcast, I'm hearing versions of songs for the first times because I'm a fan and an enthusiast, but everybody's coming to the table with something different. So hopefully the listeners are hearing something different, or some people will be like, I love that version, but it's fun because you end up hearing stuff that you wouldn't have stumbled upon. So I'm going to play this for the next song for everyone to listen to. So this is The Wheel, and this is from October 14th, 1977 at the University of Houston, and I apologize to University of Houston if I mess up the pronunciation on this, but it's the Hofheinz Pavillion, correct?
That's what I think, but I'm not from Texas myself, so you'll have to wait to hear from one of them.
The Hofheinz, we'll have to do it with a Texas accent to make everyone feel comfortable. So, cool. All right, well, everybody enjoy. We're going to play The Wheel, and then we will be back right after.
little bit more, a little bit farther than you've gone before. The wheel is turning and you can't slow down. You can't let go and you can't hold on. You can't go back and you can't stand still. If the thunder don't get you, then the lightning will. By the fire rod, we'll turn by the grace of God. Every time that wheel turns round, round to cover just a little more ground, round to cover just a little more ground. The wheel is turning and you can't slow down. You can't let go and you can't hold on. You can't go back and you can't stand still. If the thunder don't get you, then the lightning will. Won't you try just a little bit harder? Won't you try just a little bit more? Won't you try just a try just a little bit more.
To the wheel, and that is an awesome pick. So I'm glad I'm a better person to have heard it. So thank you for sharing that with me and for all of the listeners that are out here listening.
Yep, we all have our our light skip to kind of shine on the rest of the Deadhead world. Like, I found that you all have to know about it. Here it is.
Very good. Well, I'm going to skip to modern times now. So I want to talk about Dead & Company. I know a couple of podcasts ago, me and my guest talked a bit about Dead & Company because we had just come from Saratoga the day before, and we were all hopped up on adrenaline on it. I missed Hartford last week because I was in California, which was a complete bummer because I live 45 minutes from there. But I want to tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it was, we when they announced the tour back in March or whatever it was, we said, I was living up in north of Boston at the time. Now I'm living south of Boston in the Quincy area. But my parents and I always go to the shows with them. And we thought, well, Hartford is not that far away, and they're the two Fenway shows. So let's get those, and let's get Hartford, and, take the Wednesday off and go down there for it. So, it came about, it was kind of rainy that day. We were looking at the weather. I was thinking, if anyone knows, any anti-rain dances, they should be doing them about now. But, we drove down, typical kind of Connecticut traffic. But it was such a good scene. The parking lot scene was real friendly, even though it was kind of a broken up dirt lot next to some train tracks in the woods there. And it's your kind of typical outdoor summer amphitheater with, lawn seating on the hill, and then they have the roof going out, and we were all the way to the right for it, which was a little too bad because our sight lines were a little cut off. But the band was just totally clicking for most of the show. There, a couple rough spots here and there in the first set, which is bound to happen. But I think this band has just gotten so good, and they're so tight, and they kind of know each other's strengths and limitations at this point, and they can play off of that. They know, if maybe someone can't sing in this key or not, well, we'll avoid this song, or we'll have someone harmonize with it. But and everyone's been ranting and raving about John Mayer for good reason. Some of my what we were going to play after this, the Mississippi Half Step, I think he really took that song to another level. He himself. But then of course, Bobby, Mickey, and Billy are all they're members of the Grateful Dead. I can't complain about them; they're playing so well. But I think Jeff and O'Teal especially have just been making this band, a really coherent whole, that they're not just backing everyone up, they're not just doing whatever Bob says or whatever the lead guitar says. They're adding their own voices and their own playing styles, and everyone else is listening to it, and it's really just, the classic example of the sum is, I can't think of how the phrase goes, but, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
Absolutely. Well, it's magic, right? It's magic. That's why we all go. It's the magic. It's the magic of the crowd. It's the magic of the energy. And, it has been said about the Grateful Dead, they're a band beyond description, but I think it's just the magic that just kind of transcends from them, and they're hitting it, it's, they're pulling it all together, and I feel it. So I think it's, I think it's awesome. Well, let me go into that so we can get a little bit more tunes going. So you selected Mississippi Half Step, which is just, an all-time classic favorite, I think, for many, definitely for me. It's just such a fun dancing song.
Oh, yeah.
And, it's always good to get out and start kicking around to it. We heard this when I was at the Civic Center, and my friend Kat brought her husband Morgan, who's from Missouri. He's from Mississippi. He's from Mississippi. So we were very excited when this came busting out, because it was his first time seeing any incarnation of the Dead. And, it was really special. So I always think of them. Hey, Kat. Hey, Morgan. Thinking of you every time I hear Mississippi Half Step. So that was super fun. So, all right. Well, I'm going to go into that, and then we will come back and talk about, one more experience and play another song.
All righty. Sounds good.
Okay.
Get yourself a pound of church and feel that's your mind. Lost my boots and drinks and faith. I'm smoking better. Then I retread to my feet. Hey, girl, I'm scared, this is saving us some of time.
From Mississippi Half Step. I hope everybody is tapping their feet and dancing around, because how can you not when you're listening to that song?
Yep, yeah, especially, like I said, I think John Mayer really just elevated, especially the closing jam there, where it kind of seems like it's boiling down or something, and then he just kind of, I don't think he's a Jerry clone in any way, but he can kind of emulate that playing style of building up the jam and then waiting for it to get to the right point and then really just bursting through that next level. And I think Jeff too really helps other lead guitarists get to that point.
They are definitely shredding, no question about it. Well, so the next thing we're going to talk about, and this will be our final little topic and song, is, and this is actually going to be a first for Strangers Stopping Strangers, because, obviously a lot of Grateful Dead, and this was the second Dead and Company song, but, we are open to all incarnations, every thing that everyone enjoys that encompasses the whole lifestyle and the scene and all the people, so all the music is good music. So the last thing you wanted to put in was an experience from Further. So tell me a little bit about this.
Yeah, so this was November 11 of 2011, which of course is 11-11-11. So it was already numerically significant, and it was a Veterans Day. So, and the whole night we were waiting for them to play the 11, and they went through a monster of a set list, playing in the band into the Beatles song, I Want You, into Dark Star, and it just kept going on, but they didn't play the 11, and then the encore came on, and they started the 11 up out of nowhere, they didn't go into it from anything. They opened the encore with the 11, and then did a bit of a whipping post tease, the Allman Brothers song, which also has a bit in 11/4 time. And then they're going along, and then all of a sudden they just transition seamlessly into U.S. Blues for Veterans Day. And it was just, my first double encore, and I still, every show you go to, you leave it thinking that was the best show I was at, and then, maybe that fades after some time. But this one is really stuck in my head. It's probably the best concert I've been to. It was really just a fantastic night, and the encore just put the cherry on top of the cake. And different people will have different accounts of it, but the way I remember it is they finished U.S. Blues, and they finished strong. They didn't rush to an end or anything. They finished it the normal way, and they closed and they waved and left the stage, and we looked at our watches, and it was 11:11 at night. And
let me point out, this is the Onestar War Memorial, too, so, right? I mean, there you go, Veterans. It's at the Memorial Center, so it's completely full circle in that sense, too.
Yeah, it's really just one of those totally cosmic experiences that I'll honestly never forget. I still get chills thinking about it, and I hope everyone really likes it. I know some people have divisive opinions on Further. For me, they were the first Dead band that I saw live, and I saw 5 of their shows. And for me, everything kind of gets held up in the light of Further. That's what it gets compared to. So, I'm a total convert. I think that was one of the best post-Jerry Dead things that could ever happen. It's still way too early to tell with Dead and Company, but I'm a total further head as well. It's just a regular old Deadhead.
Well, I think it's all good. It's like there's no bad pizza. It's all sounds good. It all tastes good. It's all good, and I'm excited to include everything in it. And the last thing I'll say on this is the 11 on the significance of the day and the song, and then the timing. I mean, you cannot make this shit up. I mean, it's like the Fire on the Mountain story when Mount St. Helens erupt, or the rainbow that came out at Fare Thee Well. I mean, it's just there's things that just seems to happen that transcends planning, right? I mean, there's just these mythical things that happen, and this is awesome. It goes right into the stories that are, you can't make this shit up.
Yep, you're absolutely right. You mentioned the other, thing that always gives me chills every time I think about that rainbow at Fare Thee Well. I was there for those California shows, and that's just, you were talking.
I missed it. Yeah.
Yeah, you were talking about magic earlier, and that was just. Yeah, I did a review on that for my blog recently. Because it was the year anniversary last week, and it was just. It was pure magic, that these guys were playing Viola Lee blues and a rainbow came out in California where there's almost never any rain, this time of the decade, I guess.
No, it's totally significant. Well, I'm going to do a sign-off now because I have a special guest that's going to be joining me for one last little clip when, he's been following the podcast, and this is my second time playing U.S. Blues. So I'm going to have an extra commentary. We found the Chicken Shack guy. He made his appearance on the 4th of July. He's been following the podcast. So I'm going to play from the further the 11 into U.S. Blues, and then I'm going to come back with the Chicken Shack guy. For all you listeners, we have a special guest upon special guest today, and then we'll do the sign-off. So I want to say thank you to you for joining, and I'm just excited to be in touch and to meet you in person in Fenway next week. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, those are going to be some great shows. I'm definitely looking forward to it. And, if I could just do a quick plug for my blog, obviously we've mentioned it. But, if any of you out there are interested in checking it out, it's, the URL is Bourne Dead. So Bourne is in like the Bourne identity. So bournedead.blogspot.com. It's called 21st Century Dead. That's just how the URL worked out. If you Google it, look me up on Twitter, it'll show up. As the name would suggest, I talk about being a Deadhead in the 21st century. So a bit of that spin on it, reviews of shows and just kind of general Dead ideas. And, so check it out if you want to, everyone out there in Radio Land.
Check it out, and I will attach the URL to the podcast announcement. So very cool. Well, it's how we met, and everybody enjoy the further playing at the War Memorial in Syracuse, New York. Further on 11-11-11, the 11 into U.S. Blues. Back with the Chicken Shack. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
chicken shack. Summertime, let it change your act.
Well, welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the Further of the U.S. Blues, and such a great show. And I'm so thrilled to have a special guest, like I promised a few minutes ago. And, I've heard he's been listening to the podcast and decided to come by. So welcome, Mr. Chicken Shack.
Hey, it's great to be on, Staci. How are you?
I am good. I mean, this is the first additional guest, so I'm over the moon. What's been going on? It's been over 40 years since we saw you at that Winterland show. What's been happening?
It has been a little while. I toured with the Dead for a long time. I was on the road with the Dead pretty much from '69 through about 1980. I caught a lot of great shows in that time period. Wow.
Absolutely. I mean, you probably saw three keyboardists. I mean, that's fucking awesome in itself.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I saw the Dead at Winterland in '74. There, I caught 4 of those 5 shows that you see in the Grateful Dead movie.
Yep.
Then they took a little break in '75. They didn't do as much. I saw them 3 times in '75. I saw them at Kazar Stadium. I saw a show with them. They did a great show at the Great American Music Hall in San Francisco in '75, and that was pretty much 1975. So I traveled. I saw the West Coast. I spent a little time on the mountain. Spent a little time on the hill. Took in some sights. I was back on the road with them in '76.
All right. So then you took a break. So where are you? So get me up to speed on today. Where are you living and what are you doing? And are you following the shows? Can we keep our eyes out? I mean, Dead and Company has been kind of putting a shot of adrenaline back into the scene. So where you stand on that?
Oh, absolutely. I'm loving this band, this Dead and Company band. I saw them in Cincinnati just a few weeks ago. Great show there. This is the best band I think they've put together since August of '95. This is the best incarnation of the Dead since Jerry, I think.
Well, I wouldn't disagree with you on that. Absolutely. Well, I mean, so we'll be keeping our eyes out for you, and I'm so thrilled that you're listening, and just for all of the listeners. I mean, everybody loved you from your movie, and you really just are the absolute the top of just somebody who is just digging the moment and in the show and having the best time. You are just synonymous with what the crowd is all about. So I'm so happy to hear that you're still at the shows, and I'm looking forward to meeting you in person one of these days.
Absolutely. Sounds great. Yes.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us, and I'm sure everyone was excited to hear from you. And you'll be a regular guest. Will you come back in and give some commentary as the bands go on and the shows go on?
Absolutely, anytime. Yes, it'd be my pleasure. Time spent with the Deadhead is time well spent.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Chicken Shack, and thank you to everyone for tuning in. And I will be back next week with a podcast post Fenway show. So we'll have some real fun stuff to report. All eyes are on that. So this is the official sign off. Thank you for tuning in to the Stranger Stopping Strangers podcast, and we'll check you next week.